Did you know that Nirvana and Alice in Chains are one of my favorite bands ever? Kurt Cobain and Layne Staley are two of my favorite musicians and singers. I really want grunge to come back. Smells like gaming spirit. Ooh. Okay, let's get on to the video. What is up, guys? My name is Joe and I hope you're having a great night or day depending on where you live. I wanted to talk about two of my favorite singers. First off, Kurt Cobain from Nirvana and Layne Staley from Alice in Chains. Now the strangest thing is that April 5th is the anniversary of their passing. They both coincidentally passed away at the same day, but different years. Kurt Cobain passed away in 1994, April 5th. And Layne Staley from Alice in Chains passed away in April 5th, 2002. I would like to do like an informative video based on the two legends that we know and love in the grunge world. Now, people say that grunge died a long time ago, necessarily when Kurt Cobain passed away. But I don't think that's the case. I know that grunge kind of, lost its steam after, the mid to late 90s. But I think there is some hope for grunge to ever come back. There's been post-grunge, like bands like Seether and Creed. And then there's been grunge revival. You see a lot of grunge bands taking a lot of influential styles from bands of the past, bands from the 80s and 90s. Now, when you think about grunge, everyone likes to think, oh, okay, grunge, then I'm thinking about Nirvana and their Nevermind album. But, Nirvana isn't one song. They're not known for that one song called Smells Like Teen Spirit. They have 3 albums, so I know that a lot of Nirvana enthusiasts know a bunch of songs, even their rare stuff. I can name you stuff from recorded home recordings that they've done, like songs like Old Age, Been a Son, I Hate Myself Wanna Die. Those are songs that he's done on the side. I've liked songs from the In Utero album like Dumb and Heart Shaped Box. Nirvana has so many goddamn good songs. It's just so much to name. On the other hand, you have Layne Staley, the guy that brought in a lot of topics and discussions in their music. They brought a lot of controversial stuff. They put drug lyrics in their songs, and they made it known that if you're gonna do drugs, just know of the consequences. And they also made music about the hardship of everyday life, corrupted youth in society. It was really a band that wanted to show the bad things in life in music form. And that's what I really do appreciate about Alice in Chains. So I know that Alice in Chains made a few albums, and then after when Layne Staley passed away around 2002, Jerry Cantrell, which was the guitarist and the backup vocalist of the band, they ended up going forward with the band with a new member with a new lead singer called William Duvall, which I think is actually a good singer, but obviously you can never replace Layne Staley, because Layne Staley had a magnificent voice that I truly, truly appreciate. What can I say about Alice in Chains? Alice in Chains had Man in the Box, a beautiful song that I can never replicate with my own tonsils. It's just, my voice box cannot replicate his scale of voice. It was just too hard to duplicate. Then you have like Down in a Hole. Then you had Angry Chair, and my absolute favorite, Nutshell. The whole Rotten album EP got me through college. It got me through a lot of dark times, and I really do appreciate that album. I could sing Nutshell over and over again. It just puts me in a trance. That song by itself gives me goosebumps. It really does. So let me talk about Kurt Cobain first, because I want to discuss the life of Kurt Cobain. I am so obsessed with Kurt Cobain that I even buy books about him. Like this one, for example, Who Killed Kurt Cobain? Now, there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of talk and discussion, a lot of conspiracy theorists that say that Kurt Cobain didn't commit suicide back in April 5th, 1994. And you know what? I don't know what to say, but it's a shame that we lost one of the best singers in grunge history, right next to Layne Staley, and a lot of great musicians we lost, like Jim Morrison. We lost Jimi Hendrix. It sucks. They could have done so much more, and talent is wasted when you take your own life or when you pass on at an early age. But this is life. You have to go through it. But anyways, Kurt Cobain, you know, he was an American musician. He was born in Aberdeen, Washington, and growing up, he had a hard time. A lot of people didn't really get him, and he met his friend Chris Novoselic back in high school, which I thought was really cool. The guy was having a lot of tough time with his family, and I guess a lot of the rage comes through within his family to be divided into two, which sucks. He was able to take his anger and his frustration and make it into great music, which we all really do appreciate. A lot of the people from Generation X really were able to communicate. They were really able to relate to him in a big way. Kurt Cobain, as they say, that he was probably the voice of Generation X. I'm not gonna say that Nirvana was the front end of grunge. Grunge was happening way before Nevermind ever released. You know, bands like Soundgarden, Mudhoney, so many bands that they were before Nirvana were able to establish grunge. Grunge was basically a whole genre where you play music in your basement or in other people's places. It's basically a hub for a lot of underground rock bands. That's what grunge really originated from, just the whole situation where, you know, a lot of bands come together and play underground. So Nirvana, before Nirvana, they were called Fecal Matter, and I just thought that was so interesting what kind of name that would end up being from Fecal Matter to Nirvana is a big gap in between names. But as you all know, Kurt Cobain made, you know, In Bleach, you know, with songs like All Apologies and so much other classics. And obviously Nevermind happened, and Nirvana was like for grunge, like Metallica was for thrash metal. They really established what grunge was all about. And after a while, after their second album release, you know, they were under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of controversy, especially when Courtney Love came into the picture. Then the press and the media started getting really skin deep into Kurt Cobain's life. That's when everything started to go spiraling downwards and things just took a big bad turn with Kurt Cobain. And obviously he was doing heroin. Most of his life he was doing heroin, but it really got bad at the point around early 1994. The creepiest thing to me with Kurt Cobain is that when I heard You Know You're Right, which was recorded in early of 1994, he still had his voice. He still was strong enough to make music. I just felt that Kurt Cobain had so much more in him. I just felt that he could have made more albums. I don't know what happened in April 1994, that day on April 5th, but it's really a shame. But he was such... I can't go listening to In Bloom without having memories of my past. It just reminds me of my younger self. Yes, I was that 5-year-old kid listening to Nirvana, listening to Kurt Cobain shouting and yelling, and I was digging it. When that song Rape Me came on, my parents didn't want me to listen to it, but I was like, I like it, it's fun, I really like the music, you know, and I didn't think so badly of that song, but he even said it himself that it's an anti-rape song. So that's how much people were looking into his music. But the thing is, one of my favorite songs from Nevermind's album was On a Plane, and the whole song does not make any sense. It's just lyrics after lyrics about anything. Rubbish. But it's still cool. I really appreciate Kurt Cobain as a person, as a iconic star. He will go down in history as one of the influential grunge bands of the 90s. Now, I want to discuss about Layne Staley. People always ask me, why do you like Layne Staley so much from Alice in Chains? The thing is, I can relate to him. I can't say that I'm like him, but I've done some research about him and his final years, like I would say around 1997 to 2002, he isolated himself from everybody. And at a point in my life, I felt like I was going through that phase as well. Like I wanted to be alone, and I just felt, Layne Staley, he went through a lot, and his music really touches me. He made music about friendship, about drugs, about so much things that he's mentioned. Kids dying in their youth, because of gang wars and all that. I really do appreciate the Dirt album, but Jars and Flies has got to be one of the most beautiful albums I have ever listened to. And that album alone got me through a lot. Now, Layne Staley as a person, I've looked into a lot of his interviews, and he was actually a really kind person. In the 80s, Alice in Chains wasn't the grunge band that you knew. They were called Alice in Chains with a Z at the end. They were actually a hair metal band. I couldn't believe it until I heard some of the demos, but it was really, really interesting, Yeah, so then they released the self-titled album, which my brother showed to me back in 1996, and I thought it was a really great album. It kind of feels, when you're comparing it to Dirt, it's not a strong album, but it's still one of the best albums that they've released also. When you're comparing it to their new albums like Black Gives Way to Blue or their latest album, there's no comparison. The albums with Layne Staley are the best. And even if Alice in Chains moves on and they make new music, it's never going to be like it was back in the 90s. I'm telling you, Layne Staley, he made wearing glasses indoors really cool. So I really do appreciate it. He also made a side project, Mad Season, which I thought was really great because I listened to a few tracks and it has nothing to do with Alice in Chains. It doesn't feel like Alice in Chains, but it feels like Layne Staley wanted to kick back and just make some music. And it was really nice. It was like, I like the songs like I Don't Know Anything, and I would probably put River of Deceit in the Jars of Flies EP album because it kind of matches with that tone. And then I have to compare. Now this is where I have to compare the MTV Unplugged sessions with Nirvana and Alice in Chains. They're totally two different MTV Unplugs. Nirvana basically was like, okay, Kurt Cobain comes on, plays a few songs from the album, and then a few very odd and obscure music that none of the people in the audience even knew about. And that's what I really do like about that performance, is that Kurt Cobain and company were playing songs that nobody really knew, but they still managed to make the best out of it. They made those songs into awesome hits. I didn't know about that song, Where Did You Sleep Last Night? And to tell you the truth, when I think about the 90s, I think about that song because it was one of the best songs I have ever listened to growing up. He nailed that song. I didn't even know, I thought it was an original song, to be honest, from Nirvana. And then when you look at Alice in Chains, their MTV Unplugged session, basically they played their hits and they did the best that they can. But the thing is that, Layne Staley was starting to feel sick and was having some issues, and he lost his girlfriend at the time. So when I was looking at that MTV Unplugged, I could see a lot of sorrow and a lot of depression that Layne Staley was going through. And I really do appreciate that MTV Unplugged session because it shows a lot of compassion that they tried to put on display. But there was so much potential that these two legends could have continued, could have made more albums. It's like, it really hurts my heart when I know that, Layne Staley and Kurt Cobain is not here today to make more music, because I'm pretty sure grunge would have still continued. Layne Staley, I really look up to in a rock sense. I always want to say to myself, one day, hopefully, I'll be able to play like Alice in Chains. Hopefully one day I'll be able to play like Nirvana. It's a lot of hope for me, and they give me a lot of inspiration, to tell you the truth. One day I'm looking forward to try and travel and go to like Washington, Seattle, to check out, you know, Aberdeen, Washington, to try and see Kurt Cobain's old house. And I also want to go and view Layne Staley's old apartment complex. It's just stuff that I want to see. I definitely want to see the bench that a lot of people put their signatures on, the Kurt Cobain bench that a lot of people go. I would like to see the Nirvana memorial. Just want to go visit Seattle just to celebrate two of the most iconic rock stars in the grunge scene, because I'm a big fan of the grunge scene and I really do appreciate. That's why every time April 5th comes along, it puts me in sadness, because I always think about these guys, how much potential that these two had, and their life was cut short, and that sucks. And probably a year from now, I'm probably going to be talking about these two again, because they're never going to go out of my mind. I always love grunge music, and I'm always going to continue listening to grunge music. Smells Like Teen Spirit, Man in a Box, In Bloom, Come As You Are, Angry Chair, Rooster. Oh my god, there's so many good music that they've made. It's just crazy. Get Born Again. Oh my god, You Know You're Right. You can't even match that with that tone. That voice is so strong. Layne Staley had power. Layne Staley and Kurt Cobain had one of the most powerful voices I've ever heard in the grunge music scene. Yeah, you know, okay, Chris Cornell from Soundgarden. Yeah, he has a powerful voice, but they were on a whole different level. Pearl Jam, okay, maybe some songs I like from Pearl Jam, but out of the big four, Nirvana and Alice in Chains will always be my favorite. And then, you know, Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and anything that comes after that. My name is Joe, and that's what I think about Kurt Cobain and Layne Staley. Let me know what you think about them in the comment section below. I'm signing out, and I hope you enjoyed the video.